So the chapter is titled Nature, Enjoyer and Consciousness, and the acronym is Wisest. We start the chapter with a question, and this is common that we have seen from 10th chapter, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. It is the pattern is same. Arjuna starts by asking a question. So in this chapter, he starts asking Krishna 6 questions. That is the first verse. And then Krishna answers between 2 to 7 the topics of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. We will cover what they are going forward. The next part of wisest is I. I is items of knowledge. So Krishna describes 20 items of knowledge, which he says are the qualification for one to become devotional, one to be following devotional service. S stands for soul and super soul, Jivatma, Paramatma. And this is one of the chapters where you will get a very good idea of what is Jivatma and what is Paramatma. EST we will cover in the next class, enjoyer, seeker to seer, transcendent. And as I said, this is one of the most complex philosophical chapters. So many verses are not easy to comprehend. So let's try and see how I will make an attempt. And if you have any questions, please feel to reach out. Now we are starting the third section of Gita. So I thought we must give an overview here. So we have covered chapter 1 to 6, which is Karma Yoga. We have covered chapter 7 to 12, which is Bhakti Yoga. And now we are starting chapter 13, that is chapter 13 to chapter 18 is Gnana Yoga. So this is the starting of Gnana Yoga, first chapter. And if you see, Krishna has so nicely packaged the entire Gita. He has placed Bhakti Yoga in between because it has impact, influence on both Karma Yoga and Gnana Yoga. With this, we start off with what is the first verse, Arjuna's 6 questions. He says, Arjuna uvacha prakrutim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetragnam evacha etad veditam ichchami gnanam gneyam cha keshava. Arjuna is saying, oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know. Veditam ichchami. That is, I wish to know. What he wishes to know? Let's come to the question in a minute. Just to give you the background, why this chapter is called Nature, Consciousness. What is the enjoyer? Why is this name? Why is Prabhupada calling this chapter by this name? So the 6 questions basically from Arjuna are related to matter, spirit, and knowledge. This is in Sanskrit known as Tattvatraya. Jagat, that is Prithvi, Jagadisha, that is Ishvara, and Jiva. So the questions are surrounding these 3 topics. What is Jagat? It's known as Prakrti. And in this chapter, Krishna calls it Kshetra. What is Kshetra? We will know. It is nature. So that's the first part of the title. Jiva refers to Purusa and Kshetrajna. What is Kshetrajna? We will see going forward. This is enjoyer. And he says knowledge, Gnana, Gneyam, which is consciousness. So that's how this chapter is called Nature, Enjoyer, Consciousness. So what are the 6 questions? Very technical words Arjuna uses here. They are called Paribhasha Sabda, technical words in Vedanta. So, and they go in pairs. So he says Prakrti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Gnanam, Gneyam. So Arjuna says, Krishna, please tell me what these are. Now, what is Kshetra? In brief, it is called field of activity. What is field of activity? We will see going forward. Knower of the field. Why is this being called a field? And Arjuna is asking, who is this Kshetrajna? So the man who knows who is the field of activity, what is the field of activity, he is called Kshetrajna, in short. Gneyam, Gnanam. Gnanam, we all understand, it is process of gaining knowledge. Gnanam is knowledge. But Krishna says there is a process for which, by which you qualify yourself to get this knowledge. This is not easy knowledge because this is spiritual knowledge. And Gneyam, object of the knowledge. What is the object of the knowledge? That is now the object of knowledge for a Gnani is different. The object of knowledge for a Karmi is different. And the object of knowledge for a Bhakta is different. That is what Krishna will explain to us going forward. Let's go to the next verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidhiyate etadyo veti tam pravuhu kshetrajna iti tad vidaha. So now he starts describing what is kshetram, what is kshetrajna. I have highlighted the two. What is kshetra? Very easy to understand, body. What is kshetrajna? Very easy to understand, soul. But these are two new terminologies, paribhasha sabdas. So we should try to get attuned and used to them. What's the translation? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, is called the field. And one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. So why is Krishna calling this as the field? Let's understand this in detail. He says idam. Idam means I infer. We all can infer. We all can perceive. Shariram kshetram idi abhidhiyate. Iti abhidhiyate. Kaunteya is, O son of Kunti. This now we can all understand the word shariram. So he's referring to the body. And that body is being called as kshetra. And that is defined as field. This is material body. This is part of Prakrti. And this body undergoes modification. It is subject to decay, destruction. Going forward, Krishna even describes this further in detail in verse 6 and verse 7. Fantastic understanding of what this body is and how we should be looking at this body. Why is it called the field? Now, any agricultural land, you take a farmer, he has a piece of land, and what does he do? He plows the field, sows the seed, and reaps the crop. So that's why it is called field. Similarly, what is this body? Body is also a field. Body, you can call it temple. We sow this body, this field, with our thoughts. And what our thoughts are, we reap joys, sorrows accordingly. And he says, Etadyoveti, one who knows this, Tam Prabhu. So Srila Prabhupada explains the owner of this body is distinctly Kshetrajna, iti tad vidaha. One who knows this is called knower of the field. So what is Kshetrajna? It is consciousness, Paramatma principle. And what is Kshetram? It is Prakrti, hence it is the matter principle. So if you have to understand this briefly, we will come to the full understanding at the end of the next verse. So this is the body. All of us are given a body by the Lord. Then in the body, Krishna is telling us there is Kshetrajna, that is the soul. And how do we know that the soul exists? It pervades the body as consciousness. For many of us, we don't understand what is consciousness. Now, the simpler way of understanding consciousness, you try to pinch your body anywhere, leg, hands, face, you will feel pain. Why? If there was nothing in the body which is pervading us, unseen, unheard, then why is this phenomenon constant? That is explained by Acharyas as consciousness. So we all are conscious because of the presence of Atma within us. Let's move to the next verse. Now, body is called as Kshetra or Shariram, as Krishna says. And Atma, that is what we have been talking all the way, is known as Kshetrajna in this chapter. So how does this look like? This is the body, this is Atma, and this is Paramatma. And this is constant, this is common to all living entities. There's no difference between us and insect and amoeba. It may be the smallest, but this is constant. Let's go to the next verse. Kshetragnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragnayor gnanam yat gnanam matam mama. What is Krishna saying now? He says, Kshetrajna is Krishna. Kshetragnam chapi mam vidhi. I am that Kshetrajna. And what is Gnana? He says, Gnana, knowledge, is perfect when you know body is material and there is someone sitting inside who is knower of the body, who is known as Kshetrajna. This is knowledge. Let's go to the translation. O son of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all the bodies. Sarva Kshetrajeshu Bharata. And to understand this body and its knower, is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Matam mama means it is my opinion. In the last verse we saw, Krishna says, Etad yo veti tat prabhu, Kshetrajna iti tad vidaha. One who knows this body is Kshetra, material, and there is also another knower of the field sitting within the body, Kshetrajna, is knowledge. He is the one who has got the perfect knowledge. Now he is reinforcing that. He says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi, sarva kshetreshu bharata. Prabhupada explains, he says, oh Bharata, how do we read this verse? I am knower of the field Kshetra in all bodies. Consciousness in a human, Jiva, consciousness in a bird, consciousness in an animal, insect, whatever it is, any living being, going further, we saw even in non-living beings, Krishna exists as Kshetrajna. So Kshetra, body, consists of mind and senses. And Krishna is called Hrishikesha, one of his names. Rishikesha is controller senses of all the living beings in this world. So there are two knowers of the body sitting within. Now, this is something which is now we are understanding this what Krishna is trying to say. One is Kshetrajna, that is the Atma. Then there is a Pradhana Kshetrajna, the chief Paramatma who's sitting inside. He is Kshetrajna too. What is the role between Atma and Paramatma? Atma is subordinate to Paramatma. Atma depends on Paramatma. Mam Vidhi is please understand I am within you. How do we understand this? You take example, space. There is a hall which can sit 1,000 people. It's a big hall. There is another room which can sit 10 people. It's a small room. Both appear different. This is a large room, that is small room. But can you really differentiate between the space that is inside? The space inside the 1,000 people room and the space inside 10 people room is the same. That is what Krishna is trying to say. You may see that I am an elephant, I am a shark, I am a whale. Yes, the body is large, but there is no difference between the large body and the small body because as Kshetrajna, I sit in both of them. And the space cannot be conditioned by walls of a room. Space and the Lord cannot be conditioned by different various bodies. They appear different, but the principal consciousness is the same in all. This is Kshetra Kshetrajnayor Gnanam. This is knowledge. And what is that knowledge? Knowing that Kshetrajna is knowledge. And he says this is the real knowledge. In Mundaka Upanishad, it is said that knowledge of knowing this is called Paravidya. Rest all knowledge that we read, physics, science, chemistry, biology, medicine, whatever, it is Paravidya. Apara is material, para is spiritual. Yattadnanam, this is called knowledge. And who is saying this? Matam mama, this is my opinion. And knowing this, what will happen? Savidyaya vimuktaye. Vishnu Purana says this. If you know this, you have understood this, the purpose of life, what we are here for. And this is the truth which it is self-evident, always in front of us, open secret, but hardly any of us know, hardly any of us understand, because we never make the attempt to ask this question. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, Prabhupada explains this beautifully. He says, what is this house? This is the body. This is the Kshetra. Then let me complete and then go to that. Okay. And this house has, one Atma, Jivatma. So we are the tenant in that house. And key of this house, which is having the Atma inside, is held by Kshetrajna. That is Paramatma. That is how we understand this easily. So there are three realities. Body, which is material, Atma, which is spiritual, but that Atma is part of Paramatma, and Paramatma is the proprietor. That is the complete knowledge. And this diagram from the past slide now gets completed. So we have body, Kshetra. We have Atma, who is Kshetrajna 1. We have Super Soul, Paramatma, who is called Kshetrajna 2. And what is the role of Super Soul? He is only a witness. He never interferes in our lives. That is his role. He is responsive. He is not responsible. You have to decide what path you want to follow. So his role is witness. And what is Atma? How do we know Atma is there? Pervades the body as consciousness. So with this, let's move to the next verse. Tat kshetram yaccha yadrakya yad vikari yatasya yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. Let's look at the translation. Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted. What its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. In short, what Krishna is saying that I will answer all your questions going forward in the coming verses. So this becomes a summary verse. So what is Krishna going to cover? He says, Yacha. He says, I'll cover what is this body made up of. That will be seen in 13.6. He says, what are the qualities of the body? Nature and characteristic. 13.7. Phenomenal knowledge. We then will understand, oh, if we know all these things, why are we getting into this habit of being angry, being jealous? All that we can get an answer by understanding the nature of our body. Yadrak. Changes that the body undergoes. Yad vikari. Origin of the body. Where does this our body come from? He refers to Sankhya philosophy. We'll go through that. Vayam, that is the identity, Swarupa of the knower. We just saw. Who is the knower? The knower is Kshetrajna 1 and Kshetrajna 2. He describes this further in these verses. Powers of the knower of the body, Yat Prabhava. Now, what is Paramatma capable of sitting within our body is also described in the verses going forward, which we will be covering today. Next verse. Rishibir Bahuda Gitam Chandobir Vividhai Pratak Brahma Sutra Padaschaiva Hetu Madbir Vinischitaihi. Now Krishna quotes the authorities. Look at the humility of Krishna. He is the ultimate authority, but he is referring to other authorities. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities, that is Kshetra and Kshetrajna, is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra, which is also known as Brahma Sutra, with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So he is the ultimate guru, he is the highest authority, and he sets an example. He says, I am telling you this, but I'm also referring to what has already been spoken about in various religious scriptures, and he's referring to Chandobher, which is Veda, and various sages. Ritibir Bahuda Gitam. So he says the knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna is described by great sages like Vyasdeva in Vedanta Sutra, which is also known as Brahma Sutra. Vyasdeva's father, Parashara, he's also a great sage. He writes, he says, Aham Tvam Cha Tatanye. He says, oh, we, you, I, and all living entities are transcendental, although we exist in material bodies. Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Viveka Gnanam. So he's quoting to various sages, and we are highlighting these two, for example. Next, he says, Chandober Vividhai Pratak. What is Chandober? Chandober refers to various Vedic literatures. To describe this, Taittiriya Upanishad. It is a branch of Yajurveda, which describes the nature, Prakrti, the living entity, Jivatma, what we studied as Kshetra, and Kshetrajna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what Krishna is saying is also mentioned in the Vedic scriptures. That's how we have to understand. Now, what is the difference between this knowledge and the knowledge that Krishna is giving Arjuna? Now, if you see our knowledge of material science, you can take any branch of science, astronomy, atomic science, anatomy, physiology, etc., etc. They all deal with Kshetra, material science. Vedanta has distinguished matter and consciousness, matter and spirit. And they talk about this pratak very distinctly. There is no, it is not like white or black. I know in between I have to understand. No, it is very clearly defined. How it is defined, where it is defined, Krishna continues. Brahma Sutra, Padaishaiva, Brahma. What is Brahma Sutra? Brahma Sutra is Vedanta. Who is written Vedanta? It is written by Vyasacharya. What does it contain? It contains a detailed analysis of Upanishads. And what is the Sara of that? It comes now, any Vedanta, if you were to see, there are two parts to it. One is Karmakanda. Most of us are familiar with Karmakanda. Do Navagrama Homa, you do Satyanarayana Puja, you do this Shanti, you do that Shanti. All are action, no logic, rituals. And most of us feel Vedas is only rituals, which is not true. Part of Vedas is rituals. If you want to follow rituals, you are free to follow rituals. By following rituals, what happens? You purify yourself and realize the truth at the end. Then there is Gnana Kanda, where the sages take sutras, padas, logic to explain what is Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So you decide which part of Veda you approach to get that knowledge. Now Krishna is giving you this knowledge upfront. Hetu Madbir, he says, logically explain, full of reasoning. There is nothing which is like, oh, this could be, this is speculation, maybe, can be. No, it is definite. Vinishchitai, it is conclusive, certain, logically established. This is, and there is no amendment to any scripture. What is written is written. It is true for now, today, and forever. In Taittiriya Upanishad, it says, Brahma Pucham Pratishtha. So it is not just enough to know that there is consciousness, there is Atma, Paramatma within. The Brahma Pucham Pratishtha says, within us, within our consciousness, what I told you, what is consciousness? If you pinch your body anywhere, you will see the pain. That is consciousness. Now, that consciousness also has been defined as at 5 stages, 5 levels, 5 sheets. Let's see what they are. Now, it is what is a kosha? What is a sheet? It is objective level of God's energy. And now this I can tell you, not easy to understand. We will get an example, then you will understand this. Next, subjective level of individual realization. Yes, yes.
Can I just ask what? Yeah, on the last one, I was waiting for you to finish that one. Two things. Now, Rishibhihi, now Geetam Chanda, Chandobihi, not Chand. Risva. Chanda means Vedic thing. Chanda.
Right.
Chanda, not Dirga. Chandobihi. Vividahi Pratak. So it will be there. The rishis have explained in various ways Vividahi separately and Pratak and differently. Okay. The Hetumat Bihi, that's what I'm. Can you just, if you have the Hetumat Bihi, I'm trying to grapple with the meaning of it. Vinishchaihi, correct. Hetumat Bihi says.
Hetumat Bihi means
Prabhupada said with the cause and effect. Huh?
Yes. We'll come to that going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So, no. So what is objective level of God's energy by which we all exist? And what is the subjective level of individual realization? That is the kosha. And what are the koshas we all have? We have 5 koshas. And this is the subject by itself. We'll very quickly cover to understand what it is. And before that, example. What is this level of consciousness? Now you take citizenship. All of us are familiar with this. And who creates the citizenship? It's the country which creates the citizenship. Does an individual have any role to play? No. It exists independently. This is the objective reality. This is outside of the individual. Now we all can say, I am born in India, I am an Indian. You are born in Russia, you're a Russian. Fine. Objective level of realization is based on country's definition of citizenship. Where you are born, you're a citizen of that country. Now you take dog, monkey, bird. Do they have a citizenship? They don't have a citizenship. They don't have this concept at all. So their subjective level of realization is far simpler than what we are. So this is how we should understand. Our consciousness goes through these 5 sheets, 5 levels. And what are these 5 levels? They are Annamaya. Simplistic way to understand. You depend on food for existence. Take a baby. What does it do? Anything it finds, it tries to put it in its mouth. Why? For a baby, the whole world, the Lord is through the realization of the Lord is through food. Pranamaya, realizing the supreme absolute truth in the living symptoms or life. What does a deer do when it sees a tiger? Did you ever teach a deer that if you see a tiger, it is danger, you should run? No, it runs. How? That is pranamaya. It is realizing the Lord through fear for its life, and it wants to preserve its life. Manomaya kosha or gnanamaya kosha. Here you're starting to use your mind, thinking, feeling, and willing. Vijnanamaya kosha. This is where we are now moving away from the material level of understanding to the Atma, soul, Kshetrajna level of realization. Anandamaya, this is the final stage where Bhagwan and Bhakti, they become our level, our consciousness has started realizing the existing of Lord within us. So this is how this whole science is of matter and spirit. Let's move further. And this is explained, Krishna very clearly says in all our Vedic scriptures. Now he comes to the description of the body. Very interesting words. He says, Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhiravyaktam evacha indriyani dashayekam cha panchandriya gocharaha. What is this? Components of the fields of activities, kshetra. And this is true of any body in this world. And it is, Krishna is now referring to 24 principles of Sankhya philosophy. Now, if I go through the verse, it doesn't really bring alive what Krishna says because none of us have an understanding of Sankhya. So we must take shelter of a diagram. It's now becoming a little bit of science, what we used to do in our college days. So let's go word by word. Mahabhutani, and we will count 24 principles in this diagram. Mahabhutani. What is Mahabhutani? Mahabhutani is Panchabhutas, space, earth, fire, water, air, ether. Ahankaro. This is the intelligence. Let me put my thing on charging. Ahankaro is intelligence. Buddhi. Sorry, Ahankara is this. Ahankara is false ego. Why it is called false ego? We always believe we are the body. In spite of telling us so many times, we don't realize that we are Atma. That is false ego. Next, buddhi, intelligence. I'm keeping it very simple. I'm not really going into the levels of interpreting this. Avyaktam, that is Prakrti, that is the universe. He says, Indriyani dashay ekam cha. What are the Indriyanis? Dasha Indriyas. Karmendriyas is speech, hands, feet, sex organ, excretory organ. Gnani Indriyas is ear, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose. Then he says, Dasai ekam. What is that ekam? Mind. Panchendriya gocharaha. These are the five sense objects. And what are those? Sound, touch, seeing, form, taste, smell. If you count this, you have 5 plus 10, 15, plus 5, 20, mind is 21, ahankara is 22, intelligence is 23, prakriti is 24. And where is this prakriti coming from? Purusha. This is the essence of this verse. We move to the next verse. Now, this is even more interesting. It is not enough to know the composition of the body. He also has told us what happens to these 24 elements in the body, and every living being goes through this. The description is this sloka. Icha dvesha, sukam dukkam, sangatha chetana drutihi, eta kshetram samasena, savikaram udharatam. What is the translation? The life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So it's not just enough to know that we are made up of 24 elements. Now we are trying to understand what happens to these 24 elements present in the body, what are their interactions, what are their convictions, why each individual is unique, because each has a different modification of these 24 elements happening in him. In the last verse, he said, in the fourth verse, Kshetram yad vikari yatascha yat. So we are now understanding the modifications in the body, that is vikara. What is the vikara? It starts with kshetra. What is vikara? A modification, transformation. So this verse has 7 qualities described to us. And these are also part of the field of activities. Icha, dvesha, sukam, dukkam. Icha is desire, attraction. Dvesha is hatred, aversion. Sukam is happiness, pleasure. Dukkam is distress and pain. These are caused by interactions of these 24 elements, mind, senses, sense organs. So there is a constant play between them. So this is how we get into creating this. Now, this actually is not created. This is the output which has come out because of the presence of 24 elements and our interactions with them regularly. Why and how is that they are created? It is created by the mind. They are now raga, dvesha. They don't exist. It is created by the mind and it lives in its own private world and makes us all believe that yes, we are happy, we are unhappy. It's a conditioned perception of this whole world as favorable, desirable, unfavorable, undesirable. Sangatas chetana drutihi. Sangatas, bossy, the body is representation of all these factors, and even the body is not constant. There are changes happening to this body every minute. What are those changes? It is going through 6 changes: birth, growth, maintenance, production of byproducts. You can understand this as reproduction, dwindling, and death. So this body is also not constant. It is there and it decays and it vanishes. So the field, kshetra, is a non-permanent material thing. Chetana, awareness, consciousness, entire perceptual faculties of the mind. Where does this word ego, where does this word patience, where does this word tolerance come from? Why Krishna says you must cultivate this in you because you have to train the mind to become absorbent of to the discretion to understand we are not this material body, we are the soul, we are not going to suffer in this world irrespective of what is happening to us in our life. All the suffering that is happening to the body and not to the soul. This body has to die, whether it is in this phase, it is in this phase, or it is in that phase. The body has to die. So both are a changing constant. You are in happiness for some time, you are in displeasure and dispain for some time. Etat kshetram samasena. All these, in summary, are considered to be the field of activities. It is not just knowing the composition, it is also knowing the nature of these 24 elements. What do they have? What do they do within us? Savikaram udhartam. They are constantly interacting with each other. They are undergoing modifications and they are manifesting themselves within each individual, within each jiva as icha, dvesha, sukha, dukham. How do you understand this? Very nice example quoted by the acharyas. Now, let's say we are all in a movie hall watching a movie. Now, there is a role of Kshetra and Kshetrajna here. Can you guess who is the Kshetrajna? We who are watching the movie. And who is the Kshetra? Who is the field of activities? It is the screen in front of us. It is the dim light in front of us. It is the movie hall in front of us, the ambience that is in front of us, which is making it conducive for us to watch that movie. Whatever happens is the vikara. That is the modification that is happening on the screen, and the person watching the screen gets influenced. If the hero and heroine embrace, you experience sukha. If the hero is beaten by the villain, you experience dukkha. So that is how the emotions that are within us through the mind starts making us act, react. And then we start after some time forgetting that we are eternal and we are not part of the body. And most of us get into this rigmarole of believing that, oh, I'm not so lucky, I'm going through this pain. All others are so happy and so blessed. Another way of understanding the field of activities is you consider a playground at the backyard. Yes, it's a playground. You have all freedom to play whatever games you want to play, but there is a limit. And what is that limit? Is the fence. You cannot cross that fence. That is the boundary. So similarly, we have our body, mind, we have freedom, but we are, the fence is our karma. All these three, apart from these 24 elements, form our field of activities. How do we understand this field of activity? In a slightly better way. You take an earthworm. What is the field of activity? He cannot write, he cannot jump, he cannot read, he cannot run. All that he can do is crawl in, crawl out. Look at the field of a activity of a dog. It's slightly larger because he can run around everywhere. Look at the field of activities of a human. We are far, far superior than any of the living entities in the world. So we are blessed to be in this position to use the senses and the faculties given by the Lord to get into worshiping the Lord. Now, with this, we have completed the first section. We move to the second section. Here, we are understanding the I part of the wisest items of knowledge. Here, it is like me telling you that these are the greatest, and we must develop them. Saying is easy, but doing it takes a whole lifetime. So we must be conscious of that. Let's start with 13.8. He says, Amanitvam madambitvam ahimsa kshantir arjamam acharyopasanam saucham stairyam atma vinigraha. We'll do two verses together. Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanudarshanam. Let's go one by one, word by word. Amanitvam, humility. We must be humble. We should not expect respect. You can accept respect if someone gives it to you voluntarily. And remember, humility is the first starting point of spiritual knowledge. The journey of spirituality starts when you say, I am humble. I am servant of the servant of the servant. If you can think that and say that, then you can say that, okay, I have got the basic qualification to progress in this path. Ambitvam, pridelessness. Now, what is pridelessness? All of us understand the word. It is like I have something. I am proud of that. I can understand. Now, I don't have $1 million to spend, but I act as though I am a millionaire. That is adambitvam. Now, I remember this nice saying from Dave Ramsey, who says, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." That is adambitvam. And half our life is spent in this rat race. Ahimsa, non-violence. All of us can understand Gandhi, the father of nation, represented ahimsa. Srila Prabhupada takes this further. He says, ahimsa also means we should not put others in distress for whatever reason. Now you take Prahlad Maharaj. He had a demon as a father, Hiranyakashipu. And he was such a small boy, 5-year-old, and he had to go through so much of pain from his father. That is not prescribed as per scriptures. His own father tried to kill his own son. Why? What for? You are not going to exist forever. But that was a limitation in the knowledge of Hiranyakashipu. Shanti, he says tolerance. What did Prahlad Maharaj do? He tolerated the pressure from his father to say that there is no Vishnu in this world. He never gave up. Arjavam, simplicity or truthfulness. And when I say simplicity, it means alignment of Kaika, what we want to do, Vachika, what we want to say, Mana, all three have to be aligned. Then only you will be Arjavam. Then the most important knowledge element, Acharya Sanam. Who is an Acharya? Acharya is a teacher who gives spiritual knowledge. Upasnam, you love and serve the teacher. Saucham, cleanliness. We are all, no, we take baths twice a day. We wear good clothes. It has to be washed, nicely pressed, etc., etc. All this is again external cleanliness. Yes, it is a must. We cannot present ourselves badly to the external world. We must take care of the body. But what Lord says is you should also concentrate on the internal purity. Are your thoughts clear? Are your thoughts pure? That is what is the challenge, and that is what we have to cultivate. Dhairyam, steadfastness. What did Dhruv Maharaj do? What did Prahlad Maharaj do? They stuck to the task, irrespective of what were the challenges coming in their way. Steadfastness, stick to the goal. I want to follow on the path of bhakti. Whatever happens to me, whoever ridicules me, it doesn't matter. I will continue. Atma vinigraha. You need to have self-control. What is Atma? It is Sukma Sariram. We have just seen Kshetrajna. He is within. We cannot really see him, but we can feel him. We can experience him. And we should start seeing within more than outside. Next is, it is juxtaposing well. Indriyartheshu vairagyam. How do we get into this self-control, self-mastery? Try to move away from the object of self-gratification. What do we gain by drinking? What do we gain by smoking? What do we gain by doing all the things which are not supposed to be done? It is just misery. Try to tell yourself that I don't want to do this consciously. Saying is easy, but doing is difficult. But Krishna has said, please try and get into this habit of cultivating each of these elements of knowledge. Anahankara. One second. Okay. Anahankara is absence of false ego. Don't try to, we have ahankara, which itself is false ego. So we move from false ego to the real ego. What is the ego? I am servant of all. Atma is dependent on Paramatma. I may have all the powers in the world, but still I have a limitation. My field of activity has a boundary, and that is karma. Next comes this very nice thing. Let me show this if it works. See this child. All of us are born here. And what happens to this body? However beautiful you are, however rich you are, this process is inevitable. Every one of us have to go through this. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. If you know this, then you will not really struggle so hard, try to impress others in this world. This is how we are going to end up with. How do I come out of this? Okay. Yeah. So, Prabhupada says very nicely, he says, if you read, if you understand that we have a boundary which is defined as my karma, and we all have to go through this Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, if you become aware of it, then your rajasic tendencies will reduce. You will start trying to pursue the attempt to learn whatever scriptures say. You will try to become humble and say that I want to learn what is the purpose of my coming into this. And if you do that, that is the first step for spirituality. Spiritual journey starts. Dukkha doshanu darshanam. He says, if you are able to understand the miseries that are going to befall us going forward, then you will start practicing detachment. It is not that we should not be attached to body. We must exist in this world. We have to do everything that we aspire to do, but within the framework of spirituality. What Krishna is saying, do this as a work for me. Choice is yours. Karma yoga, Gnana yoga, Bhakti yoga. Now you take Arjuna. What did he do? He did not want to kill his family members. He said, oh Krishna, how can I kill them? I wouldn't want to kill them. But then after he went through Gita, he says that I am now a realized person. He says, this family, this is attachment. I can only be attached to something which is eternal and permanent, that is the Lord, and I don't want to be attached to this family or relations. That is the realization that Arjuna came through. I have a message here. Okay. Ravi, is it better now? Some problem with the Wi-Fi, I think.
Now it is
Now,
okay.
sir.
Now it is better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's go to the next verse. Asaktir anabhisvangaha putradhara gruhadishu nityam cha samachittvatvam istanishtopapatishu. We will go through the verses and we'll go line by line. Maichanya jananya yogena bhaktiravya vicharini vivikta desha sevitvam arter jana samsadi. Let's go line by line. Saktir, equipoise, mental detachment. We have seen Indriyarteshu Vairagya in the last verse, where we are talking about detachment from the sense organs. That is Dhamma. Asaktir is mental detachment, Dhamma. Try to control your mental faculties. In 2.64, Krishna says, Raga Dvesha Vimuktastu Vishyan Indriyascharan Atmavasir Vidiyatma Prasadam Adhigachati. Person who is free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. How do we do that? How do we follow this mental detachment? How do we develop this mental detachment? He says, Anabhiswangaha, absence of fondness. Be even minded to life. What is good today is going to be bad tomorrow. Be aware of that. And what are you attached to? You're attached to putra. That could be putri also, child, dhara, wife, gruha, house, and dishu is business. Try to come away from this attachment. Why? Because they are temporary. You take shadi. We always start with mera meri, and then after some time it becomes mara mari. So what is fun becomes a pain going forward. Nityam cha kamachitvam. Equipoise of mind at all times. Ista anista upapatishu. Give up both like and dislike. If you are really going through a good patch in life, you say that, oh, well, my good karma is in play and I can expect something to go wrong going forward. And when you get into a bad patch, say that I was expecting this, I will look at this with equipoise. Now, Krishna is emphasizing here in the verse 11. He says, Mai Chananya Yogena. In the midst of Gnana Yoga, it's first chapter of Gnana Yoga, Krishna says, Mai Chananya Yogena. Bhakti Avyabhicharini. He says, Bhakti is an important virtue. Spiritual knowledge is not possible without devotion, without surrender. Ananya Yogena. Try to cultivate this with undivided attention. Try to love God. We know how to love our family, our children, our house, our job, our salary, our treasure, our wealth, etc., etc. Just add one more missing element: love the Lord. Avyabhicharini. Don't try to change this. It's not that when I'm feeling good, I will pray to the Lord. When I'm not feeling good, I will not pray. That is not enough. Bhakti avyabhyarani, unwavering. Viveka sevitvam. Try once in a way to go away to a place of solitude. Perhaps go to an ashrama, go to a vipassana center, whatever suits you. Try to find peace. Try to ask this question: Who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And your jignasa for spiritual pursuit starts. Bharatir Janasansadi. Now we should be very, what you can say, clear to understand what Krishna says. He says, your company defines your state of mind. If you are surrounded by people who are materialist, you tend to be a materialist. If you are surrounded by people who read Gita, who read Bhagavatam, who try to, what you can say, who are on the path of achievement, they are trying to progress, then you also start getting inspired to say that, let me do it. Now, all of us are sitting in this session on a Sunday evening listening to Gita. That is what we should do. At least for 1 hour, we have switched off the TV. We are not listening to what's happening in the external world. We are trying to understand what we are within. So with this, we finish this verse. We go to the next verse. Jnana nityatvam tattvagnanartha darshanam etadgnanam iti proktam gnanam yat anyata. Krishna says, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth, all these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there is, it is ignorance. Atma means Atma, dealing with Atma, knowing within. Gnanam is inquiry. So if you inquire, you will come to know about more and more about Kshetrajna. Now, how do we inquire? Through Shastra. How do we approach Shastra? With the help of a guru. Acharya Upasanam. So Adhyatma Gnana Nityatvam stands for Shastra Vichara. Try to read, try to listen, try to understand. Tattvagnanam Tata Darshanam. All these virtues or values are prescribed for the sake of gaining qualification. Jnana Yogyata Prapti. You are gaining eligibility. How do we understand this? Why do our kids write GMAT, TOEFL? Because they have a desire to go into a foreign university for doing their post graduation. So what do? They work hard to qualify. They get the best of TOEFL scores, GMAT scores, and their admissions is guaranteed. Similarly, we should try to and strive to get this 20 elements of knowledge within us so that we will be successful in understanding what is the knowledge that Krishna wants to share with us. Etad gnanam iti proktam. All the 20 values are means to gain knowledge. Gnanam yadato anyatha. Apart from this, Krishna says everything else is ignorance. Just try to focus on Ved, try to understand Atma, try to understand Paramatma. Now we move to the lesson 3, soul and super soul. Very interesting section, lessons, but not easy to understand. Neyam yat tat pravyami yat natvam ashnute anadimat paramma nasatan sate. Now Krishna starts saying this. What is the soul? What is the Atma? By knowing the Neyam, you will attain Amrutam Ashne. Brahman, the spirit soul, Jiva, is beginningless, Anadi, subordinate to me, Nadi Mat Param Brahma. Let's look at the translation. I shall now explain the knowable, Neyam, knowing which you will taste the eternal, Amrutam Ashnute. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Uncle, you were talking about cause and effect. So Prabhupada is now bringing that here. Nasatan nasat uchyate. This Paramatma is beyond the cause and effect. Let's see how do we understand this line by line. So till now, what we have learned, Krishna has given us the description of Kshetra. He says the body, field defined as field of activities. Kshetrajna, there are two Kshetrajnas, Atma and Paramatma. Kshetrajna 1, Kshetrajna 2, and Gnana. What is the Gnana? There are 20 elements of virtues and values that we should practice to become absorbent of this internal knowledge, eternal knowledge. Now he starts explaining what is Atma and what is Paramatma. He says, Neyam yat pravakshyami. Vakshyami is I shall explain. Pravakshyami is I shall explain in a way you will understand. Because what Arjuna, what Krishna says should be in a way that Arjuna is able to understand. Yat Amrutam Ashnute. If you know this, if you know the soul and the Paramatma, then you can relish, you can enjoy the nectar of life. We have studied in second chapter that the soul is eternal. We know that. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The Atma is not killed when the body is killed. In Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it says, Pradhana Kshetrajna Matir Guneshu. The chief knower of the body and the master of the three modes of material nature exists within us. And what is his characters? Anadi Mat Param Brahma. Anadi. Adi Mat means there is a beginning. Anadi Mat means there is no beginning. So nobody can say when Krishna was born, which year, which BC, which AD. No. There is no birth of this Lord. He is eternal. Mat Param. Now, this is where you can understand he's talking about the soul and not the super soul. Atma and not the Paramatma, because it's Mat Param Brahma. This Atma, this Kshetrajna is dependent on me. It is under my shelter. So now this Brahman can be confusing. Brahma is the eternal creator. Brahman can mean Atma. Brahman can mean Paramatma. So in this context, if you read the purport, Srila Prabhupada very clearly says he is describing the Vijnana Brahma, that is the Atma. Nasatan Sat Uchyate. He is beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Now, what is this material world? It is a constant flow of cause and effect. Yesterday is the cause for today, and today is going to be the cause for tomorrow. But he is unaffected. He is beyond this cycle of cause and effect. How do we understand this? Now, Acharya has given another fantastic example. They say, if you ask the question, does milk contain butter? Now, the answer is certainly yes. Can you see the butter in the milk? No, you cannot see. What do you have to see the butter in milk? You have to go through a process. You have to make it as curd, then you have to stir the curds, then you'll get butter. This is how we can understand Atma within us. And in 14th chapter 27, where Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratistaham. I am the basis of the formless Brahman too. Now, to understand this, how it is, there's a nice story. The story goes like this. Akbar and Birbal will together, and Birbal asks Akbar, can you give me whatever I ask you? Akbar says, except my kingdom, you can ask me anything, I can give it to you. Then Birbal says, can you give me nothing? Akbar says, oh, how can I give you nothing? I cannot give you nothing. Then Birbal says, why? It is simple. What is below the carpet you are sitting on? He says, nothing inside. Just give me that. So this is how, if it is not manifested, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That is how we have to understand this. Second story is about knowledge. We all consider ourselves well educated. No, and then there is a great Brahmana, very well qualified. He's traveling in a boat and he asks the boatman, do you know grammar? Vyakarana. The boatman says, no, I don't know. He says, do you know Mimamsa Shastra? He says, I only know Meena and Mamsa. I don't know Mimamsa. Then he says, 50% of your life is gone. Then the Brahmana asks, okay, let me give you one more question. Do you know what is Tarka Shastra? The boatsman says, oh, I don't know Tarka Shastra. Then he says, 75% of your life is gone. Now imagine the boatsman is uneducated. He does not have any knowledge. But Brahman is fully qualified on all the material sciences he knows well. That time, what happens? There is a leak that develops in the boat. Then the boatsman asks, do you know swimming? The Brahmin says, I don't know swimming. He says, your 100% life is gone. So we should be conscious that however much we know about material science, that knowledge is not enough for us to live in this world. So what is Krishna describing? He is describing Brahman, which is Vijnana Brahman within us. It is Anadimat, Amrutam. Knowing this gives you eternal pleasure. It is beyond the cause and effect. It is Matparam. It is under the shelter of Paramatma. This is called also as Brahma. Understand that this is the soul. Shastra Uchyate. This is what the Vedic literature also covers. We go to the next verse. Now comes the description of the super soul. The next 4 verses, he gives a beautiful description of the super soul. Sarvata pani padam tat, sarvatokshi shiro mukam, sarvata shrutima loke, sarvam avrutya tishtati. Paramatma super soul is all pervading. And how do we understand this all pervading? He gives a wonderful explanation. He says, everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces. And he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. Very interesting way of describing. Now, this verse is such a tough verse that, one of the great Goswamis, Advaita Acharya, spent sleepless nights trying to understand who is this person that the Lord is describing. Who is that person who has eyes, ears, legs? We know him as either Bhagavan or we know him as formless Brahman. Who this could be? I have not seen this form of the Lord before. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes in his dream and says, I am explaining Paramatma to you in this verse. Please read this as Paramatma. So for us today, it is very easy because we have Srila Prabhupada's translation, purport, etc. So how do we understand this? The example Prabhupada gives is that sun is all pervading by diffusing unlimited rays. The sun is far away, but the whole world can feel its presence, can experience its presence. That is how the Lord is. Sarvata pani padam tat. Tat means knowledge, neyam. He says Pani Padam Tat. Everywhere are his hands and legs. So what it means is pervades everywhere. And how do we see him in us? You see him in our legs, in our hands, in our we are part and parcel. So that's what the Lord is saying. I am with you. You are me. You are representing me. In 9.26, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. He says, if you offer me anything with love, water, fruit, leaf, I will accept it. Now, if he's sitting in a far off place, does he have a hand which is so far that he can come and accept our offering? No. The inconceivable potency of the Lord is that he may be situated in Goloka, but he can accept our offerings effortlessly. That is the essence of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. In Brahma Samhita, he says, Goloka eva nivasati hilatma bhuta. He is always engaged in his pastimes in his transcendental planet, but he is all pervading. Whenever you call him, he is there to receive. Sarvato Kshira, Shiro Mukham. He has eyes. She means eyes. He has Shira means head. Mukham means face or mouth. Sarvata Shrutima Loke. It pervades everywhere. Sarvam Avritya Tishtati. It pervades, energizes, enlivens everything. Tishtati means embrace, envelope. How do we understand this? Our existence and our consciousness. Our existence is enveloped by our consciousness. Avritya. In Brahma Samhita, it says, Andantrastha Paramanu Chayantrastham. Lord resides within this universe. He resides within the hearts of all entities. And he resides even within the atom. Because we lack perfect knowledge, we cannot see God. But a little deliberation can see him, help us see him everywhere. You move to the next verse. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, Asaktam Sarvabhutchaiva, Nirgunam Gunabhoktrucha. Now, he's the second feature of the Lord, that is, he says the Lord is transcendental. The super soul is original source of all senses. Yet he is without senses. The very contrasting verse. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all modes of material nature. So in the last verse we saw, Sarvata Pani Padam Tat, he is pervasive. Now he is giving us the second feature of the Lord. He says, Sarvendriya Guna Bhasam. He is the source of all gunas. How do we understand this? Now, when you listen to something, the Lord within us becomes the listener. He is called Shrota. When you speak, the Lord within us becomes the Vakta. When you hear, when you see, the Lord within us becomes the Drutta. When you think, the Lord within us becomes the Manta. So this is how he is within us, part of the gunas, but he is above them. Sarvendri Vivarjitam. He is free from all the senses. The modes originate from him, but he is apart from that. He's out of that. He doesn't say, I am the thinker, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the perceiver, I am the feeler. No, the Lord doesn't have the I notion. I notion is only a conditioned jivatma. Asaktam sarva bhritchaiva. How does he pervade every one of us? By being detached. At the same time, sarva bhritchaiva, he is supporting everything. The whole world rests within him. But he is not influenced, he is not impacted. Nirgunam, because his senses are transcendental. They are not having any material covering. They don't have rajasic, tamasic, or sattvic influence. Guna bhoktru, he experiences the gunas, but the gunas are only at the level of our mind as jiva. That is why we go through sukha, dukkha, ichha, desha. But the Lord is pure consciousness. So this verse has three contradictions. He says, guna abhasam. He is the source of all senses, but without senses. Then he says, Sarvendra Vivarjitam. He is the maintainer of all, but is not maintainer of everything, anyone. He is the Lord of all the modes, but is still beyond modes. Nirgunam Gunabhoktacha. We move to the next verse. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charam evacha sukmat sukmat avat tad avigneyam durastam cha antike cha tat. Paramatma super soul is all reconciling. Let's read the translation. Supreme truth exists outside and inside. Very wonderful way of describing. Of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he's subtle, he's beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. That is why we struggle to see him. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. So in the verse 14th, we saw he is all pervasive. Sarvata Pani Padam. In the next verse 15th, he says, I am Sarvendra Guna Bhasam, transcendental. Now he's saying, Bahirantascha Bhutanam. The Lord exists outside and inside of all living beings, all living beings. And that includes even the non living beings. And how do we understand the Lord? As the space. As I explained to you earlier, the room, the space inside the room is the reality. Yes, the space inside the large room is also a reality. But the biggest knowledge is to know that the room and the hall is in the space. So all of us, the Kshetrajna is within us, but all of us are within him. That is how we understand. And we have seen this Vishwarupa Darshana, how Krishna showed this to Arjuna. Acharam. So he is available. He is there even in the acharam, things which do not move. Plants, mountains, they are inert objects, but the Lord is present in them. Charam evacha, which moves, animals, birds, insects, within all living beings, he is present. Sukma tavat tad avigneyam. God, he is extremely sukma. He is subtle. He is beyond the power of material senses. Tad avigneyam. We cannot understand, recognize the Lord through our limited senses, mind, intellect. Avigneyam, the feature of the Lord is unknowable. Very, very difficult to understand him unless you become a student and surrender unto him. Durastam, for those who do not have a Shastric background, for him he is very far away. Cha antike cha tat. But for people who are wise, people who are trying to do sadhana, people who are trying to read scriptures like what we are doing today, people who are humble, amanitvam, They will be blessed by this knowledge by the Guru. Although far, far away, he is also near to us. How do we understand this? Because Brahman is everywhere. We move to the next verse. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu, vivaktam iva cha sthitam, bhutabhartra cha tadneyam, krashnishu prabhu vishnu cha. Paramatma super soul is undivided. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. He has no attachment. So, what did we see in the 13th verse? Sarvata Pani Padanta. 14th verse, Sarvendra Gubhasam. He is transcendental. Bahirantascha Bhutanam. He is outside us and inside us. He is all reconciling. Now he gives us another perspective of the Paramatma. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu. Vibhaktam means division. Avibhaktam means undivided. So super soul is indivisible. So the space cannot be divided. You can build any number of rooms, any number of buildings, but the space continues to be whole. And he is existing invisibly in all the living beings. Bhuteshu. Now, we have body, mind, consciousness, and we assume to think that he is different in a different body. Now he's clarifying that. Vibhaktam ivacha sthitam. Even though I am situated in different bodies, even though you think that I am different, I am not different. How do we understand this? You take sunlight and see the reflection of that in one, two, 10 of containers. The reflection is the same because the light is coming from the sun. But is it the same? It is not the same because it does not contain the same potency. Bhuta bhartracha tadneyam. Bhartra means, we have heard this husband is generally called the Bhuta. Why? Because he upholds the family, he supports the family. So the Lord is Bhuta Bhartra Satneyam. He is the maintainer of the entire universe. Sat Tadneyam. He is the knower of this universe. He is the knower of all the living beings in this world. And that is the knowledge. He is the knower. Tadneyam. It is not enough. He is maintaining everyone. Now he says Krashnishu. He is devouring everyone. Our end also is coming from the Paramatma within us. Prabhu Vishnu Cha. He is also responsible for us, of our creation. So he is the Kala Shakti, creator, sustainer, and destroyer. Next verse. Jyotisamapita Jyotihi Tamasa Paramuchyate Gnanam Gneyam Gnanagamyam Hrudi Sarvasya Vistitam. Gneyam is the Paramatma super soul who is situated in everyone's heart. So he is telling us, Hrudi Sarvasya Vistitam, I am situated in every living being heart. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge. Knowledge, Gnanam. Object of knowledge, Gnayam. And Gnanagamyam. He is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. So how do we see the flow? In 14th verse, he says, I'm all pervading. Sarvata Pani Padam Tap. 15th verse, he says, transcendental. Sarvendriya Gunavasam. In 16th verse, he says, I'm all reconciling. Vairantas Cha. I am outside and I am inside. 17th verse, he says, I am undivided. I am the maintainer and I am the destroyer. Aviktam cha bhuteshu grashnishu prabhu vishnu cha. Now Krishna is revealing what is the swarupa of this Paramatma. He says, Jyotisam api jyotihi. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He does not need another light to illumine. Jyoti means the light of all lights. Now, when we see this, you can understand that every instrument of knowledge can be light. Take ears. Without ears, you cannot hear the sound. So, with the presence of ears, the sound can be understood. So, the same thing for sight, same thing for taste. Now, the ultimate light, Jyotihi, Jyotisamapita Jyotihi, is that consciousness whose presence you can know everything. That is consciousness. Tamasa paramuchyate. And he is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. How do we understand this? Now we see a mirage in a desert. It is so real. You can see the water in front of you, but Can that water touch the desert sand? No. That is how the Lord is. He is beyond darkness. Now the sky is blue. Can the blue sky color touch the sky? Possible. So this is how we have to understand the uniqueness of our consciousness. Gnanam, Gneyam, Gnanagamyam. One of the most powerful lines. He says, I am the knowledge, is the object of the knowledge, and is the goal of the knowledge. And where is this located? It is located within everyone's heart. So Vistitam means Visheshena Sitam. He is available, he is accessible, he is recognizable. He is within all living entities and non-living entities. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ativa Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Bhami Sakali Santa. A devotee of Lord Krishna, Krishna Bhakta, is desireless, he is peaceful. Karmis desire material enjoyment. Gnanis desire liberation. So for a karmi and a gnani, the object of knowledge is Krishna. What is the goal of that knowledge? It is not to obtain Krishna. It is to obtain liberation. Gnani wants liberation, karmi wants material opulence, and the yogis want mystic powers. So ultimately, all of them are going to get disappointed because they are not having that vision of a bhakta. For a bhakta, gnanam is to know about Krishna. Gneyam is the knowledge of Krishna. Gnanagamyam, the object and the goal of knowledge. The sadhya and sadhana are all Krishna. They live in this world peacefully. Next, the last verse of this session today. Iti kshetram tata gnanam gneyam choktam samasata mad bhakta etadignaya mad bhavaya upadyate. Qualification to understand this topic. So we have to have the qualifications. Thus, the field of activities, body, knowledge, gnanam, and the knowable, gneyam, have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. So now, here, he is giving you the whole summary, what he has covered so far. And before we read this verse, I quote this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Asu Vairagyam Gnanam Chayat Ahitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Lord, one immediately acquires knowledge, Gnanam Chayat Ahitukam, and Janayati Asu Vairagyam, detachment from the world. So that is the only solution, the only path to obtain knowledge or obtain liberation. You have to follow, surrender unto the Lord. Iti means Kshetram. We have seen this in verse 6 and 7. What did we see? We saw Mahabhutani Ahankaru, to Tetana Duddhihi. Tata Gnanam. He described the 20 elements of knowledge in the verse 8-12. Amanitvam through Tattva Gnanartha Darshanam. In next he says Gneyam. Where did we learn about Gneyam? We are going through that. Verses 13 to 8. He says Anadimat Param. It is beginningless and under my shelter. Continuing to Hrudi Sarvasya Vistitam. I am situated in all living beings, all non-living beings. He says, Samasataha. I have choktam. First is what is choktam? What is choktam? I have thought. Samasataha. I have thought to you in brief. I cannot give you the entire details, but I have given you the sense of it. Who can understand this? Imagine. He says, Mad Bhakta Ita Diknaya. That Gnani, yes, you are in the path of Gnana Yoga, but if he has some devotion, if he is able to understand ladder of devotional service that we studied in the last chapter, he will be able to understand this. Mad Bhavaya Upapadyate. He will become endowed with Mad Bhavaya, love, prema for me. So in the starting chapter of Gnana Yoga, in this first 19 verse, Krishna has touched upon bhakti twice. In 13.11, he says, Maichananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. And now he says, Mad bhakta eta diknaya. This is the importance of bhakti. With this, we have come to the end of session 1. Quick recap. We are in chapter 13, nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. We have covered WIS. W is wise questions from Arjuna. So Krishna starts by answering Kshetra and Kshetrajna in the first 2 to 7 verses. I is items of knowledge. He describes 20 elements of knowledge in these 4 verses. Then we have seen S, super soul and soul, Atma and Paramatma. That is name. Knowing about Atma, Paramatma, and the relationship between the two is Nayam. This, we complete the session today. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open for any questions you have.
Thank you, Shyam. Good enlightenment. Slightly heavy from my point of view with the substance, though the intention was to cover all the topics. And you try to give a few examples and even WhatsApp university examples, which was good. But
yes,
it was a little bit of a heavy dose.
Yes, Ravi, I accept and I confess in the first slide itself. I said this is one of the most complex chapters. If Advaita Acharya, who is one of the 6 Goswamis, spent sleepless night in understanding one word, just imagine what is our situation.
I know.
It was very difficult, and I have tried in my way, and we must really endeavor again to understand what is the essence of this knowledge, why it is so difficult to understand. But thank you, Ravi, for sitting through.
No, my pleasure. You are doing a great service to us by trying to simplify, explain examples, which is an important thing, Shyam. Like you have always maintained, one needs to know the Gita. If you cannot know the Gita, you need to hear the Gita. If you cannot hear the Gita, at least something will go in. So by the effort is to listen and try and imbibe, absorb some portion over a period of time. Surely this will help.
Very true. It is like sowing the seed. So slowly it will germinate and then grow.
Yes.
And let me tell you, when I was sitting to prepare for this chapter, I realized, oh my goodness, how am I going to explain this? And 19 verses in 1 hour is a challenge. You can discuss one verse for 3 days. That's the extent and depth of knowledge involved.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Shyam, Mahendra, as you rightly said, this is my first session, and actually it is first session in the reality as well. So, as you rightly said, again, that it is the beginning, and let me see how far I'm able to carry on and get more and more knowledge out of your discourses.
Thank you, Mahendra. Thank you for the first step.
I
We
would,
must
I would
make the
say
attempt to
keep-
join these sessions.
Yeah. I mean,
keep-
I will continue to join the sessions unless that I'm preoccupied with something. But I'll surely try and attend everything that is coming my way.
Thank you, Mahendra.
No, there's nothing to thank you. I will say thank you to you because I'm getting an opportunity ready-made coming my way.
Fantastic.
And Mahendra, this is held on the first Sunday, more or less same timing.
Yeah.
So there will be situations where we may have some other appointment.
Yes.
Shyam also posts it on YouTube. So in case you missed, you could pick it up from there also.
Right. Sure.
And I must take time to thank, we have a very, very exalted devotee amongst us, Shyam Chandra Das. And he's taken time off to be with us. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Please bless me. Please bless all of us.
Actually, it is my good fortune to be part of your wonderful session today. Somehow, I was in another session. It just got over at 5:30. So when I joined, you were on 13.9, I think. Okay. And I was really happy to participate and, try to gather and grasp as much as possible. But I agree with another participant that it was slightly heavy for me also, because so many verses you have covered very nicely and, in such a short span of time. And there were some challenges on the video side. Audio was good. I think video was getting frozen once in a while, especially on the text matter, what you were, So that was getting frozen. So, but it was okay. I mean, the audio was clear. Audio was not having any problem, so we could understand the context and the nice way you give good examples also. So I'm really happy, and hopefully I'll participate in all future sessions of yours. Very nice. My good fortune. Thank you so much, Shyam Sundarji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavad Pranam.
Dandavad Pranam to you.
Dandavad Pranam.
Thank you. Thank you, Shyam.
Yes, thanks, Shyam. Yeah.
Tini, thank you very much for joining.
No
So
problem.
we
Thank you.
have
I would say, yeah, I enjoyed it also, Sham. It rushed through, agreed, but I still understood, still like, Kshetrajna. First time I heard what's Kshetra, it's very confusing. Who is Kshetra? Who is Kshetrajna? Kshetrajna, you say, was me, body, the one who is, owner of the body. And then he says he also Sri Krishna. You put that one nicely. They are both. He's a super Kshetrajna. And the Kshetra concept is going. I mean, this is the third or fourth time I'm going through some of the verses, over the last 3 years. It helps to go through again and again. Every time you understand a little bit more. One thing I'll ask you, thank you. Kshetra, when, the famous Bhimsen Joshi song, is it from Namdev or something? I don't know. Kshetra Vithala, Kshetra Vithala. Is that Kshetra Vithala is the same Kshetra?
yes. Anything which is a Kshetra and you have Vittala to follow, is saying that I'm not talking about Atma, I'm talking about Vittala, who is Paramatma.
Yeah. Kshetra Vithala. That's a very, very famous song of it. I keep listening. But I mean, there again, Kshetrajna is quite a lot in this one. And I mean, Prakrti and all. You put the context very well. And I think for the first timer, it is difficult. But I would say we keep revisiting, revisiting. And you like a chipping away on that one, and you understand. That I got, although I was not putting my video on, but constant there, listen to the whole thing, Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. I hope you were able to sit through.
Yeah, I was able to sit through.
Thank you, Suresh ji. Ramesh, any other questions? Anyone, please feel free. Murari.
No. So it was a wonderful session.
Thank you, Murari. If there are questions, I will not hold you back from spending the Sunday evening with family members. Thank you very much from the bottom of our heart. Please bless me to continue this going forward. With that, let me say Hare Krishna. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank
Bless
you.
you. Bless
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.